Linux is no longer just the operating system for programmers and hardcore tech enthusiasts. Something massive is happening right now in the tech world, and millions of users are quietly walking away from Windows 11 faster than anyone expected. For years, Microsoft completely dominated desktop computing, and most people never even considered alternatives. But today, users are frustrated, exhausted, and searching for something better. They're tired of forced updates, heavy system requirements, endless background processes, privacy concerns, built-in ads, Microsoft account restrictions, and operating systems that somehow feel slower every single year. That frustration opened the door for Linux in a way we've never seen before. The biggest surprise is how modern Linux distributions completely destroyed the old stereotype that Linux is difficult to use. That version of Linux is fading away rapidly. Modern Linux distros are clean, polished, beginner-friendly, visually stunning, fast, secure, and surprisingly powerful. Many users who install Linux for the first time now realize they can do almost everything they did on Windows, but with better performance, more freedom, and fewer annoyances. And once people experience that difference directly, many never go back. One of the biggest reasons users are abandoning Windows 11 is performance. Modern Windows systems consume massive amounts of RAM and CPU power even while sitting idle. Background services constantly run silently. Telemetry systems collect data. AI features stay active. Updates install unexpectedly. Over time, many systems begin to feel bloated and sluggish, even expensive hardware. Linux distros approach computing differently. They focus on efficiency. Users are taking laptops that barely function on Windows 11 and transforming them into fast, responsive systems again using Linux. That experience alone is convincing millions of people to switch. Privacy has become another major reason behind Linux's explosive growth. Users are more aware than ever about data collection and tracking. Windows 11 pushes Microsoft accounts aggressively and integrates online services deeply into the operating system. Many users feel like they no longer fully control their own computers. Linux distributions are built on open-source principles, which means users can see how the software works and maintain far more control over their systems. There are no forced cloud accounts, no built-in advertising systems, and no constant attempts to collect user data for corporate ecosystems. The first Linux distro absolutely destroying Windows 11 expectations right now is Linux Mint. This operating system became legendary because it solved one major problem better than almost anyone else. It made Linux feel comfortable for normal users. Instead of overwhelming people with technical complexity, Linux Mint delivers an experience that feels familiar immediately. Former Windows users can install Mint and begin navigating the desktop within minutes because the layout feels intuitive and traditional. Linux Mint focuses heavily on stability and simplicity. The Cinnamon desktop environment is smooth, modern, and easy to understand. Menus are organized logically, settings are accessible, and the entire operating system feels designed around real usability rather than technical experimentation. That's one of the reasons beginners love it so much. Users don't feel like they need to learn an entirely new computing philosophy just to use their computers. Performance on Linux Mint is also incredibly impressive. Older laptops suddenly feel alive again. Systems boot faster, applications open instantly, and multitasking becomes smoother even on low-end hardware. This matters enormously because millions of people are keeping older computers longer due to rising hardware prices. Windows 11 often struggles on aging systems, but Linux Mint handles them beautifully. Another huge advantage is software management. Installing applications on Mint feels cleaner and safer than Windows. Users don't need to search random websites full of fake download buttons and suspicious installers. Instead, applications are available through centralized software managers where programs can be installed securely with a single click. That simplicity removes one of the biggest frustrations average users face on Windows. Gaming on Linux Mint has improved dramatically too. Steam support, Proton compatibility layers, Vulkan graphics APIs, and driver improvements transformed Linux gaming completely. Thousands of Windows games now run smoothly on Linux systems, and some even perform better because Linux handles system resources more efficiently. This completely shattered the old belief that Linux wasn't suitable for gaming. The second Linux distro making massive waves right now is Pop! OS, created by System 76 Pop! OS became one of the most respected Linux operating systems because it combines simplicity with serious performance. While Linux Mint focuses on familiarity, Pop! OS feels futuristic and productivity-focused. The moment users install it, they notice how polished and premium everything feels. One of the biggest strengths of Pop! OS is workflow efficiency. The operating system includes advanced tiling window management systems that automatically organize applications intelligently across the screen. For developers, editors, designers, programmers, and multitaskers, this becomes incredibly addictive. Instead of wasting time dragging windows constantly, users can focus entirely on work. Gamers also love Pop! OS because of its outstanding hardware support. NVIDIA drivers, which were once a nightmare for Linux users, are handled beautifully. System 76 simplified installation dramatically by offering dedicated NVIDIA versions of the operating system. This made Linux gaming much easier for average users who previously feared compatibility issues. Performance optimization is another reason Pop! OS is growing rapidly. The system feels fast, responsive, and smooth even under heavy workloads. Many users report lower temperatures, lower RAM usage, and fewer random slowdowns compared to Windows 11. The operating system simply feels lighter and more efficient. The visual design also deserves serious attention. Pop! OS looks modern without becoming cluttered or distracting. The animations feel smooth, the spacing feels intentional, and the interface creates a premium experience that rivals commercial operating systems. Many people are shocked when they realize Linux can actually look better than Windows 11. The third distro rapidly gaining popularity is Fedora. Fedora became famous for combining cutting-edge Linux technology with impressive reliability. For years, some users viewed Fedora as too advanced for beginners, but modern Fedora releases changed that reputation completely. Today, Fedora is polished, accessible, and surprisingly user-friendly. One major reason Fedora stands out is how quickly it adopts new Linux innovations. Fedora users receive modern kernels, updated drivers, security improvements, and desktop technologies faster than many other distros. This makes Fedora extremely attractive for developers, engineers, creators, and professionals who want modern software stacks without sacrificing stability. The GNOME desktop experience on Fedora is one of the cleanest and most refined environments in Linux. It focuses on minimalism, productivity, and focus. Some Windows users initially find it different, but many eventually prefer it because of how uncluttered and streamlined everything feels. The operating system encourages users to focus on work rather than distractions. Security is another massive advantage of Fedora. The distro integrates advanced security systems deeply into its architecture. Sandboxing technologies, SE-Linux protections, and modern permission management systems help create one of the safest desktop operating systems available today. At a time when cybersecurity threats are becoming more dangerous globally, this matters more than ever. Another reason Fedora continues growing is trust. Many developers and enterprise professionals use Fedora because it sits close to the forefront of Linux innovation while remaining reliable enough for serious work. That reputation influences regular users too. When professionals trust a platform, others feel more confident trying it themselves. The fourth distro destroying Windows 11 expectations is Zorin OS. This operating system understands something extremely important about psychology. Most people switching from Windows don't actually want to learn a completely different interface immediately. They want familiarity, comfort, and confidence. Zorin OS was designed specifically around that idea. The first thing users notice about Zorin is how beautiful it looks. The interface feels elegant, modern, and polished straight after installation. Unlike some Linux distros requiring heavy customization to look attractive, Zorin already feels premium from the beginning. The real magic, however, lies in how adaptable the operating system is. Zorin allows users to switch between interface layouts inspired by Windows and Mac OS. This dramatically lowers the learning curve for new Linux users. Former Windows users instantly know where settings, menus, and applications are located, reducing frustration significantly. Performance improvements on older hardware are another huge reason people love Zorin OS. Millions of PCs technically fail Microsoft's Windows 11 hardware requirements, even though the systems still function perfectly fine. Zorin gives those computers a second life. Users who thought they needed expensive upgrades suddenly realize their machines still work beautifully. Application compatibility tools are also helping Zorin grow rapidly. The operating system includes systems that make running many Windows applications easier, reducing fear for people worried about losing software access during migration. The fifth Linux distro massively disrupting the desktop world right now is Arch Linux. Now, this choice surprises many people because Arch has a reputation for complexity. And yes, compared to beginner-focused distros, Arch definitely requires more technical involvement. But its popularity exploded because it offers something incredibly powerful: complete control. Arch users don't simply install an operating system, they build one tailored specifically for their needs. Nothing unnecessary is included. Every component exists because the user chose it intentionally. This philosophy creates systems that feel unbelievably fast, efficient, and personal. The rise of Arch Linux was accelerated heavily by content creators, developers, gamers, and advanced users showcasing customized Linux desktops online. Beautiful themes, futuristic interfaces, ultra-lightweight systems, and advanced gaming setups made Linux suddenly look exciting instead of intimidating. Linux became cool. One of Arch's biggest strengths is its rolling release model. Instead of waiting years for major operating system upgrades, Arch users receive continuous updates with the latest software versions. Their systems stay modern constantly without requiring complete reinstallations. The Arch user repository, known as the AUR, is another reason advanced users love the platform. It contains an enormous collection of community-maintained software packages. If users want a program, there's a very high chance someone already packaged it for easy installation. This massively expands software availability. Gaming communities especially embraced Arch-based systems because of performance and rapid driver updates. Distros like Endeavor OS and Garuda Linux simplified the Arch experience further, allowing more users to enter the Arch ecosystem without dealing with difficult installations manually. What's fascinating is that these 5 Linux distros aren't really fighting each other. Together, they're challenging Microsoft's dominance itself. Each distro targets different users, but collectively they prove Linux can satisfy almost every type of computer user today. Linux Mint attracts users wanting simplicity and familiarity. Pop! The OS targets creators, multitaskers, and gamers. Fedora appeals to developers and professionals wanting cutting-edge software. Zorin OS helps Windows users migrate comfortably. Arch Linux empowers enthusiasts who want total control. This diversity is actually Linux's greatest weapon. Windows offers one operating system experience controlled entirely by Microsoft. Linux offers freedom of choice. Users can experiment until they find environments matching their personalities and workflows perfectly. Economics are also driving this Linux revolution. Windows licensing costs, subscriptions, and hardware upgrades become expensive quickly. Linux distributions are free. Users can install them on multiple systems legally without worrying about activation keys or recurring payments. During difficult economic times, that matters enormously. Cloud computing also weakened Microsoft's ecosystem lock-in. Years ago, users depended heavily on Windows-specific software. Today, many workflows happen inside browsers. Google Docs, Microsoft Office online tools, Discord, Slack, Spotify, Zoom, and countless other services work directly through web apps or Linux native versions. This makes switching operating systems much easier than before. Content creation on Linux improved massively too. Video editing, graphic design, streaming, music production, and 3D rendering are now fully viable on Linux systems. Blender became one of the world's biggest 3D tools while thriving on Linux. OBS Studio dominates streaming. DaVinci Resolve supports professional editing workflows. Creators increasingly realize Linux is completely capable of professional workloads. Another huge reason people switch is trust. Many users simply trust open-source ecosystems more than giant corporations. Linux distributions are built transparently. Communities can inspect code, contribute improvements, and discuss problems openly. This creates a fundamentally different relationship between users and software companies. Windows users often feel trapped inside decisions made entirely by Microsoft. Linux users feel empowered to shape their own computing environments. That psychological difference becomes addictive once experienced. The gaming revolution deserves special attention because it changed everything. For years, gaming was Microsoft's strongest advantage. Most gamers stayed on Windows because Linux gaming support was weak historically. But Valve completely transformed the industry through Proton and the Steam Deck. Thousands of Windows games now run beautifully on Linux systems. Some games even perform better because Linux uses system resources more efficiently. This removed one of the biggest reasons users avoided Linux for decades. The Steam Deck itself became one of Linux's greatest advertisements. Millions of gamers suddenly realized they were successfully gaming on a Linux-based operating system without problems. That instantly shattered years of negative stereotypes. Linux also gives hardware longer lifespans. Windows systems often become slower after years of updates and increasing system requirements. Linux distros remain lightweight and efficient much longer. This reduces electronic waste significantly because users don't need to replace functioning hardware constantly. Customization culture also exploded recently. Linux desktops became forms of self-expression. Online communities constantly share themes, widgets, layouts, workflows, and unique desktop setups. Users love the ability to transform their systems visually and functionally in ways Windows simply doesn't allow. Meanwhile, frustration with Windows 11 continues increasing. Users dislike forced Microsoft accounts, AI integrations, hardware restrictions, ads inside the operating system, and constant feature experimentation. every controversial Windows decision pushes more people toward Linux alternatives. What's most interesting is how accessible Linux became even for older users. Previously, Linux was viewed mostly as something for young programmers and tech enthusiasts. But modern distributions are so user-friendly that even non-technical users switch successfully. Many realize they mainly use browsers, office applications, email, and media apps anyway, all of which Linux handles perfectly. Digital minimalism is another factor driving Linux adoption. Many people are tired of operating systems constantly demanding attention through notifications, ads, pop-ups, and integrations. Linux environments often feel quieter, calmer, and less manipulative. Educational content around Linux also exploded recently. YouTube channels, Reddit communities, Discord servers, tutorials, and beginner guides make learning Linux easier than ever before. The intimidation factor is disappearing quickly. Some people switch because they're curious. Others switch because they're angry at Microsoft. Some switch for privacy, performance, gaming, or customization. But once they actually experience modern Linux distributions, many realize the old myths surrounding Linux simply aren't true anymore. Linux is no longer just an alternative operating system. For millions of users, it's becoming the better operating system. And perhaps the most important part is that this movement keeps accelerating every year. Linux desktop environments improve constantly, while dissatisfaction with bloated proprietary systems grows. Gaming support expands, hardware compatibility improves, software ecosystems mature. User communities grow larger and more welcoming. For the first time in decades, Microsoft's dominance genuinely feels vulnerable. Windows still controls the majority of desktops globally, but Linux is no longer hiding quietly in the background. It's entering mainstream conversations openly and confidently. And the 5 distros leading this transformation are proving something incredibly important. Users don't want operating systems filled with restrictions, advertisements, forced ecosystems, and unnecessary bloat. They want speed, privacy, freedom, customization, reliability, and respect. Linux is finally delivering all of those things at a level average users can appreciate immediately. The future of desktop computing may not belong entirely to giant corporations controlling every aspect of user experience. It may belong to open ecosystems where users decide how their computers work. And right now, Linux is leading that revolution.